Here is 10 random CrossFit things that are for some reason imprinted in my brain. The way I came up with these was I thought of this, stuff that's imprinted in my head, and then I just sat down and started writing stuff, and I didn't scroll, I didn't have any reminders. This is stuff that's so imprinted in my head that I just remembered it right off the dome. I have 10. If you want to keep track of how many you remember and let me know in the comments, I'd be interested to see how many of these random obscure things some of you will remember. We'll start off easy with Fraser's little spinny thing from his vlog right after he retired. This one I think most people remember because for some reason it was kind of a big deal when it came out. I mean, everybody was like, oh, what secrets does Fraser have? And then he comes out and it's like the most kind of random stuff and probably stuff that wouldn't help really anybody, and people just realize he's actually just a genetic freak and trains really hard. I love that spinny thing because if I remember right, those like sold out on Amazon or wherever they were sold like the day after. It's just such a random, dumb thing. Number 2 is Jacob Heapner's vlogs from 2019. I was actually obsessed with these. He was kind of big on his vlogging kick, like right when I started CrossFit, and I loved watching those. And I actually went back the other day and I watched some of them, and the craziest volume imaginable. I watched those videos and I was like, how was he living like this? He had a vlog. It was like day 1 training for the 2020 CrossFit Games. Mind you, it was like a week after he finished the 2019 games. In one day, it was like 5x10 back squat and then a bunch of accessory stuff and then 4x a 400 meter sled push. And then he did like monostructural intervals. And then he did like 4 Metcons and an Olympic lifting session at night. And I was like, that was a week after he finished the 2019 games. It was crazy. All right, number 3. This is a little bit more obscure and a little bit more specific. There was a Mayhem Monday where Rich and I think it was Dre were doing box jump overs at like 42 inches and ring muscle ups. And for some reason, that workout is like imprinted in my mind. I think it was like 3 rounds of 12 and 12, and they were doing it at 42 inches. And I just remember I was kind of new to CrossFit and just seeing Rich do like the 42-inch box jumps. At the time, Rich just had so much swag. It just really burned that into my brain. And if anyone remembers that, then you either have a really good memory or for some reason just stuck with you like it did me. Number 4, Baden Brown in Event 10 from the 2021 CrossFit Games. I have no idea why this is imprinted in my brain, but he was leading that event. It was like a bunch of running and toes to bar. He looked so fast, and it looked like he was sprinting and everybody else was like just trying to get by on the run. Anyway, he was such a like random athlete at the time, and he was so big but looked so good running. It just kind of stuck with me. Okay, number 5. This is the craziest one to me. There's a vlog from Richie in 2019 where Greg Glassman offers him the wild card. And if I remember right, Richie was actually really, really fit at the time. And I think he was at the media dinner and Greg offered him the wild card and he turned it down. Like, why would you turn down the wild card? That is so sick. First of all, 2019 was the year where there was like a lot of national champs and everybody was there. So it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. If I remember correctly, he said something like he didn't want to take a spot without earning it. But it was like, that's part of the... Dude, it just would have been sick. First of all, it would have made such good content. I mean, back then, seeing him, and I think he probably actually would have made it through quite a bit of cuts. That probably would have been better content than the behind the scenes that he ended up doing, just because how cool would that have been? And a lot of us were like following Richie back then with like all his training and stuff. I don't know why he turned that down. I mean, if I were him, I would regret that every day. Number 6, Annie doing DT at the men's weight. When I first saw this, I had just started CrossFit and I did DT, I think earlier that week when I saw this video. Now, when I did DT earlier that week, it was dumbbell DT. The time cap was 15 minutes. The time cap hits, I'm like, I'm just going to keep working through. And my coach at the time goes back to like the office in the gym. He comes back out at 22 minutes and I'm on my last round. He's like, you're still here? He's like, I thought you left. 22 minutes. It took me 22 minutes to do dumbbell DT when I started CrossFit. And then later that week, I see this video of Annie doing it at 155 in, I don't remember how long. It was fast. I feel like I should have been demoralized, but it really just amped me up even more. I'm like, a girl can just, is this fit? A girl is this fit? And I think kind of just amped me up to keep going. Number 7. There's a video of Tiffany Hendrickson. At the end of triple threes, her legs just give out, but in a weird way. And I remember watching this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then a little bit later, I find out she goes to my gym. And the way she fell was so scary. How do you even push yourself that far? I would have started walking like a mile ago if I was hurting that bad. How people can push themselves that far to where they're body gives up before their brain even does is honestly sick. Also, it's kind of a little bit almost a scary watch. So So I think it stuck with me even more because of that. Matt Fraser's hardest workout. I think most people will probably remember this. He posted on his Instagram, it was every minute for 20 minutes, 24-calorie assault bike, and 18 GHD sit-ups. And I think most people remember this just because when he retired, everybody was just hanging on to his every word. Like, what is he going to say? What secrets is he going to reveal? And again, he was just better. All right, this next one's not really something to remember as much as it is something to have noticed. And that is the way Patrick Vellner jumps onto the finish line. Every time I see him jump onto the finish line, it looks like he's about to hyperextend his leg. Every time he jumps on, and I've noticed it probably 5 separate occasions, he jumps on and his legs are like straight, and he's just like, he'll jump onto the finish line like this. And it looks like he's about to hyperextend his leg. It's the most unathletic looking thing I've seen. And I wonder if anybody else has noticed this. It just looks so freaky. Every time I'm like, ooh, every time he jumps onto the finish line. All right, lastly is the 2019 Dubai Championships. They had a workout with like every weird movement you can think of. They had flying push-ups, which by the way are sick. They had deck squats, underhand chin-ups, or underhand chest-to-bar pull-ups, and a couple other things. I don't remember what. But I really like the idea of doing different stuff. And I feel like a lot of people make we should stick to classic CrossFit argument. But in all honesty, it makes it so much more fun, and is what brought a lot of us into CrossFit in the first place, is the variety, is the different stuff. Having one of those workouts, especially if well written, in a competition isn't that bad. And I don't like hearing people complain about that. And I don't think anybody complained about it in 2019, but now I feel like if they did that same workout, people would complain about it. Anyway, those are 10 random CrossFit things that are imprinted in my brain for some reason. Let me know in the comments how many out of those 10 you noticed or remember. Peace.